We're going to have George talk for probably about the first 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yes.
And if any of you want to ask a question, you just click that raise your hand icon. It looks like a little hand pointing up. And then I will call on you and unmute you, and you can ask the question to George. So, that being said, I will turn it over to George. And, oh yeah, did you have a, we have a, so yeah, Kareem sent us a little thing to introduce George.
Okay.
Would you like to read it?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, well, this is your introduction, George.
Okay.
Dr. George Pransky has started 3 successful principle-based practices. The first one in Oakland, California, along with his wife, Linda Pransky, and another consultant. Later, he and Linda moved to Washington State, where they began a new practice that quickly grew to include 10 full-time consultants and 4 part-time consultants. Most recently, he, along with Linda and Barbara Patterson, have started teaching teachers in a mentorship program. So now we will turn it over to the man himself, George Pransky.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to talk to everybody about this. I have started 3 practices, and the reason I brought that up is because I never did any promotion of those practices to speak of. In other words, the practices were built through referrals and through taking telephone calls. And the promotion that I did is I did evenings, introductory evenings, and other than that, I pretty much kept my eyes open and saw opportunities and stepped into those opportunities. And I really think that that's the way to build a 3 principles practice, is through seeing opportunities and stepping into opportunities. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, but I want to say one thing before that, and that is that in introducing, say, selling a business or selling a service or products, there are 2 problems that you have that are mutually exclusive. One problem is the need for your product is accepted in the world. So everybody knows that this is a valuable product and something that people are going to want. So, for example, right now, obviously, computers and applications and computer software programs, the world recognizes that those are really important, really valuable things. So there's a big demand for it, see? So if you have a product or a service that is whose need is well recognized, then the problem you have is competition. See, because if you look around, there's so many computer manufacturers and so many applications and so many, software programs that the good news is you have a valuable product. The bad news is you have to compete price-wise and in every other way with a big supply of people. Okay, that's one problem you have is competition, because you have a respected service or commodity. Now, the other problem that you have, which I say is mutually exclusive, excuse me, is if you have a product or service that people don't know they need. They might, in fact, need it big time, but they don't know they need it. So the problem we have there is, the good news is you don't have any competition because there's no demand. Okay, and so the good news is, because there's no demand, there's not very many suppliers. See, so you'll be one of the only people selling this product. The bad news is there's no demand. You have to create the demand through education. You have to educate people to the fact that they need this product. Now, at one time, that was the problem that the computers had. There were computers, there was the software, there was the hardware, but people didn't see the value of it. They thought, oh, I don't need that, and it was like a 20-year education process where finally people recognized the demand. If you think back about like copying machines, at one time there was technology for making copies, and nobody saw the need for it. People would say, well, I can use carbon paper, and where am I going to send all these copies? Why do I need a lot of copies? Or the same thing with overnight mail. They had to sell the need for that idea. Okay, and once Xerox sold the need for copies, they were the people selling the machine, leasing the machine, selling the machine. Now this long-winded introduction is suggesting that the three principles is in the second category. It's a service or a product, however you look at it, that the world does not know that it needs. It doesn't know that it needs that. Okay? So our job in promoting the principles and building a practice is mostly education. We have to get across to people that they do need what we're offering. And the good news is we don't have competition. The rest of the field of psychology and self-help is working from a completely different paradigm. So as you and I look out in the world, we see this enormous need, and all we have to do is show people the relationship between what they're trying to do and what we're offering. So they know what their problems are. They know what they need help with. They know what they'd like to improve in. And all we have to do is show them the relationship between that and the principles. So, for example, if someone's having trouble losing weight and they're going on all these different diets and they're doing an exercise program and they're doing everything they can behaviorally to lose weight, you and I know that something has to change within their mind for them to lose weight. They have to have a different relationship to their urges. If you keep the strength of their urges consistent, they're going to have trouble losing weight no matter what they do, because their urges are going to override their program. Okay? Now, if you show them, look, all you have to do is have a different relationship to your urges, and then their urges will not override your program, they'll be able to lose weight. If their relationship to their urges was such that their urges were maybe 25% as strong as they are now, losing weight would be easy. And the principles changes people's relationship to their thinking, whether it's their urges or whatever it is. It changes their relationship to their thinking. So the relationships it can be seen as a weight loss program. So let me go back to what I was saying about seeing opportunities and promoting them. Let's say that your product, and of course this would have to be a long time ago that you had this product, was water. Okay, you discovered the utility and the significance and the benefits of water. So everybody else on Earth was walking around, and they saw water, but they didn't think it meant anything. They didn't think it was of any importance. But you had an insight and clicked into it. And as you looked in that direction, you saw that there were more useful water. So you looked out in the world, and you saw people who were dehydrated, and you realized, wow, if they just had water, they'd be doing great. And they didn't know that, so they didn't see water as connected to their health. And you, as you understood water more deeply in the nature of water, you realized, wow, water could produce energy. You have hydroelectric dams, and the world is really, there's an energy shortage. All I have to do is show people that water is the key to the energy shortage, and they'll want my product. You'd see it in nature. You'd see the plants. The reason plants were dying is because they didn't get enough water, because people didn't see the nature and the significance and utility of water. Okay, so if you discovered water, your job, all you would have to do is educate people to the relevance of water to what mattered to them in their life, and your sales would be through the roof. Okay, now here's the parallel. Sydney Banks in early 1970s discovered something about people that is profoundly relevant. Okay, I'm going to have to, you're going to hear a little noise in the background now, because we're at my house and my wife's going to be making coffee, so there'll be a little bit of noise in the background. He discovered that there's something happening in the psyche of people. There's a force, you might say, in the psyche of people that has tremendous potential in terms of improving the quality of people's lives, improving their ability to accomplish in the world, improving their performance, improving their relationships, improving their ability to smell the roses in life. That the forces at work within the psyche of each person was really casting the die in terms of the quality of people's lives in every way. So he discovered this, and he discovered that this source, this force, was linked to to our spiritual nature, to an intelligence and a creative potential that is universal and has unlimited potential. And that once people understand even the existence of these internal forces, if you will, it will instantly make a big difference in their life because they'll see things differently. So that's the discovery that Sid Banks made. And when he made this discovery, the world didn't see that at all. They saw genetics, behavioral changes, coping with your feelings, trying to change your memories, deal with memories. There were, 400 approaches in psychology, and none of them realized that understanding these principles was all a person needed to improve the quality of their life. So that was a discovery. People understood that there was thought, but they didn't understand that all you had to do was know that you were the thinker and know what was behind thought, what thought was connected to, the spiritual source that thought is connected to. If you understood that, the very understanding of it would be everything that you required, would offer you everything that you required. So Sidney Banks came up with a product and service that people didn't know they needed. Okay? And then you and I, as we see the nature of these principles, and as we see the human potential that's released to the understanding of these principles, our job is to show the world that these principles are the answer to the problems that they're trying to solve and the benefits that they're trying to receive. This is an example of the person losing weight. Okay? So the deeper you and I understand the nature of these principles, the more we'll see them in the world. So and then we call that grounding, that you actually get more grounded in it as you realize these principles, as they become real to you. You begin to see them in the world, in operation. And as you see it deeper, you see, wow, the world is the principles at work. Dieting is the principles at work. In sports, the internal, they call it mental toughness in sport. They didn't always realize that there's a internal, in the psyche of each player is a resilience, a creativity, an ability to understand the game, an ability to take in the moment and see along in the moment. This internal factor in sports has become bigger and bigger and bigger. All the articles that they write now is how these athletes, elite athletes, see more. Their thinking is, the quality of their thinking is better in the moment. They see more, they observe more. They see things earlier. Okay? That's linked to the principle. The more deeply people see the principle, the higher the quality, the clarity of their thought, the quality of thought, creativity within their thought. There isn't an area in life that isn't linked to people's ability to think clearly and to draw from creative sources of mind. They're all linked to that. Everything's improved. And you begin to see that wherever you look. Now, that's what I mean by opportunity. You look out in the world and you can see, wow, if these people could see the relevance of the principles to what they're doing, they would be, thrilled. They would be jumping for joy. And I have the capability of not only showing them that, but teaching them about the nature of these principles. That's why when I was in Oakland starting my practice, and really at that time there was Lyndon, myself, and Roger Mill. He wasn't in the clinical, he was in the prevention area. It was just Linda and I. We didn't know how to teach it very well. But we could see the need for it, and we could get across the need for it. So when we did public talks, X number of people walked away and said, well, I didn't realize it. The answers were in me in that way. And we were more, had more attention on seeing the nature of the principle than we did on articulating the principles. That's a mistake that I see out in the community, is people think the answer is articulating principles, having a good rap, being able to define them well and talk about them well. That's not what sells. What sells is people seeing, wow, this person really is hopeful about what they're saying. They really see that there's a lot of hope in what they're saying, a lot of potential in what they're saying. They seem to really mean what they're saying. And if it looks like you are grounded in what you're saying, you mean what you say, and there's a lot of possibility and hope in what you say, people are very forgiving about your ability to articulate. They're more interested in your sincerity and in the fact that you look like you found something than they are in how well you can talk about it. That's the implication of what I'm saying right now. That's where the leverage is, if you will. Well, I've been talking for a long time. It seems like it's been a half an hour. So I'd love to take questions, because, you know, when you talk to people, you never know what they hear or what they're interested in. So I'd love to take any questions that you have. And I'll give you a little bit of time to formulate them.
So if anyone has any questions, you can just click the little hand icon, or I think the exclamation point icon, and I will unmute you. Let's see. And Amber Walker, did you have a question? Ani Shio.
It doesn't matter, Max, if there's no questions. Just give them a couple more minutes, and if there aren't any, I can just talk some more.
Okay. Oh, wait, we've got a question from Jackie Ford.
Okay.
Hi, George.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi there. You spoke about leverage points. I'm thinking about the different types of people and groups that you were speaking to, especially when you were with Roger Mills. Was there anything that struck you particularly about the type of leverage points that resonated more soundly with one group versus another group?
Okay. Yeah. Let me think about that, Jackie. Well, I do think that you end up talking differently and using different language and using different manners of expression with each client that you have, each group that you have. But I think that that is something that emerges out of the moment. That's something that just comes to mind as you're talking to people. So when you're with a different, like when Roger was talking to a bunch of housewives at Modelo, you know, mostly single mothers at Modelo, when he started out, he talked over their heads. You know, they couldn't understand what he was talking about. At least that's what he told me. But then in the course of dialogue, he got to understand their language and how they saw things. So his expression changed, but it wasn't anything that he sat down and figured out. It came out of a moment. It just, different thoughts came to mind and different ideas came to mind and different metaphors came to mind and different language came to mind. That takes care of itself if you're engaged with someone. Now, when I went into business, Jackie, you know, they had a lot of trouble understanding what I was saying because to them it was, my language and manner of expression was very ethereal and very kind of airy-fairy, and they had a really hard time. But in the course of dialogue, I got to learn how they saw things and learn what language they used, but that just happened automatically. So, your expression does change with everybody you talk to, but that's not something you have to concern yourself with. It's something that will happen in your rapport with them. Now, here's the other point, Jackie. This is a little bit more than what you asked, but what the people you're talking to, what they're interested in is that you really see something that would be helpful to them. They can feel that. They can feel the relevance. They can feel that there's something there. And your sincerity, so sticking to what you know, sticking to your grounding. If you have those two things going, people are very forgiving about the language, and they will help you and they'll ask questions. And you'll get more on the same page. So I hope that answers it.
That's perfect, George, because at the moment I'm speaking to community groups, I'm speaking with politicians, but I'm also speaking with business people, and it is just having that ability to trust my wisdom, and that what will come out in the discussion will be what is required and coming from a place of confidence, which I guess is what you're saying about my grounding.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, Jack. Just to show you how simple it is. I was talking to a group of scientists in a biotechnology company, and it was like I was from another planet. They just could not relate to what I was saying. So what I did is, and you can do this, it's so simple. I said to them, look, what I was referring to earlier, you know, when I was talking about peace of mind, I'm talking about that there are times when a person feels relaxed inside and secure. And I'm saying that we all have this in us. Now, what would you call that? I said to them, what would you call that? Can you relate to what I'm saying? What would you call that? And one of the people said, well, I would call that being centered. I said, okay, so when I talk about this, you can think to yourself, oh, he's talking about being centered. So I kind of put the responsibility on them to find what I was talking about, and then use their own words. And then I began to learn what the words were. So then those words would fit into the conversation. But you can always say to someone, here's what I'm trying to say. How would you say that?
I love that. Thank you. That's great.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, the articulation, believe me, is the easy part. The hard part is you're getting your grounding deeper and sticking to your own grounding.
Mm.
Any other questions or comments?
I think Shirley Voss had a couple questions. Shirley?
Oh, good. I didn't have to pay anybody to have questions. People that have it.
Shirley, are you there? Well, she also wrote her questions in text. So Shirley said, love this talk. I see opportunity for helping people with burnout. Could you please give me your view on that? And also, I'd love to hear more of George's experience with bringing three principles teaching in businesses.
Okay.
Also, if you could share more about his mistakes and what hasn't worked.
What was that last sentence?
If you could share more about your mistakes and potentially what hasn't worked.
What? I still didn't hear it.
What hasn't worked? I think maybe through trial and error, if you found things that haven't been successful.
Great. Yeah, well, let me see. The first part of that question is burnout, and then it was working businesses, and then what worked and didn't work. So that's quite a mouthful, those two questions. Well, burnout's a good example. Like, if I were talking to a burnout group about the principles, I would want them to see that burnout occurs in the mind of the burnt out person. That's where it all takes place. Okay? And that the whole notion that there's such a thing as burnout, as an external thing, an outside-in thing, where if you work too much, you get burnt out, as if it's, materially and physically out there. You can't cross that line. So I would talk to that notion that like everything else, burnout doesn't have a life of its own. It doesn't exist independently of what happens inside the mind of the person, and it only seems to exist because burnout got a very good publicity agency that they work with. Like, burnout became a hot idea, an answer to a lot of problems. Burnout was a very popular notion, but there was a time when there was no such thing as burnout. People just said, "Oh, every once in a while I get tired of my work," and that was it. But then when it became, people bought into the idea that there was an external thing as burnout, it became very popular. Everybody was talking about being burnt out and how long can you work before you're burnt out. So just someone that, if you could show people that burnout is in the mind of the burnt out person, and that the principles are the force that creates the experience of burnout. And if you can see that happening, see how that happens, you'll see that it's just temporary thinking that frightens people. That's it. It the temporary experience of, oh, I'm sick of my job, didn't frighten people and didn't have the meaning of that. There'd be no such thing as burnout. So again, it's just showing people that what looks outside is really inside. That was Sid Smith. What looks outside is really comes from inside. And it's like a film clip, and then you're looking at the screen. The burnout is what's on the screen, and the film clip is what's, what really matters. So that's the answer to the first one, or at least my best shot at it. Working with businesses, it's interesting. The same things work in working with businesses, and the same things don't work in working with businesses as with private individuals. You have to have a strong feeling of connectedness with the people you're working with, whether they're business people or they're, individual clients. You have to listen to what matters to the business people, just as you do with individual clients. And you have to connect what matters to them with the principles, so that you can say, well, that's just a matter of, if, say, burnout was the issue in the business. Oh, burnout. Well, that's just a matter of people understanding the role of their own thinking. That'll solve the burnout problem. So you have to show people how the principles, an understanding of the principles will resolve whatever they're concerned about. Now, when I first went into business, it took me a little bit to understand the business problems that businesses were having deep enough to see the psychological functioning component in it. You see, so there was a little bit of a learning curve for me. And prior to that learning curve happening, people couldn't understand me very well. I didn't really know what to talk about. Didn't know how to talk about things. But as I understood the world of the businessman, what their subjective reality looked like, and what they were struggling with, and I respected that, and I began to see the psychological functioning component in it, work with business worked out really well. And the same is true with individuals. Like when I was working with individuals, if I couldn't relate to what they were presenting, the issues that they had, they didn't feel respected and they didn't listen, it didn't work out. But if I could understand how it looked like to them, and if I could show them the relationship to the principles and how the principles would speak to it, it worked out great. Now here's the second thing that came to mind as I was talking to you. The common thing that doesn't work in business and in individuals is you buying into the reality of your client situation or problem. So if you have a depressed client and you commiserate with them and feel like, oh, my word, I'd be depressed too if that happened to me, it's gonna be hard to help them, because instead of them getting more like you, you get more like them. Your spirits would go down. The same thing is true in business. It's a common mistake that people make in working with businesses. They buy in and get concerned about the external manifestations of the problem and forget that it could change in a second, that it's just a misunderstanding. So sometimes a business will say, yeah, well, the economy's bad, we're losing a lot of money, and people have to make more calls when they go to work. They have to make 10 calls instead of 5 in order to make a sale, and as a result, the morale is bad, and people are taking other people's clients away. Now, if you bought into that reality and it frightened you, you'd say, oh, wow, what are we going to do here? You have to get the business cycle to change. But if you understand that all it is fear and discouragement inside the minds of the people, that's the only thing that's going on. But for that, they'd be very high-spirited. They'd have good ideas. They'd have good relationships with their clients. They'd be good listeners. Everything would be great if they weren't insecure and disappointed, if those feelings have become real to them and weighed them down, and the thinking behind those feelings. But for all that thinking weighing them down, they would be doing great as a company. So the second thing is it's easy to buy into the external, outside-in problems of a company, because in the company, everybody's going to agree with those. So you can go to anybody in the company, they're all going to say the same thing. Yeah, it's the world. It's not me. It's the world. It's the business cycle. It's my customers. It's pricing. They'll all have external reasons why the company's not doing well, and they'll all agree on it. And it's easy for the consultant to say, well, gee, if they all agree, there must be something to it. But it's never anything but what's happening inside the mind of each individual. And if you can hold a line on that and keep that in sight and not get fooled or buffaloed, then they will begin to catch on to that, and they will see that you're right, and they'll see things improving, even though the externals remain the same. So that's my long-winded answer to that question.
So, Rich, we have another question that was typed in from Lionel.
Okay.
And he said, how do you know when your grounding is good enough so that you can share the principles with others and offer your help?
Oh, Lionel, that is the $10,000 question. That is a great question. I'm so glad you asked that, because if you hadn't asked that, I would have gotten off and said, yeah, I wish I'd answered that question. If let me put it this way, if everybody that teaches the principles, everybody that's interested in teaching the principles, has had a defining moment that has been meaningful to them. So all of a sudden they said, oh, wow. And they see life a little differently, and the way they see life differently really helps them. And it takes something like that to motivate someone to teach the principles. People who don't have that defining moment think, why would I want to teach that? What's the use of that? What's the use of the principle? But once you see it in your own experience, wow, this really affected me, and I see things different, and I understand things differently. Once that happens to you, it makes sense. You know, if I'm working with people, this is what I should teach them. This would help everyone. If it helped me, it's going to help everybody. Now, when you stick to that experience, you come from that understanding and that experience that you had, and that new knowledge that you had, and that new clarity that you have, people will be attracted to it. They'll see that you see something that might be helpful to them. They'll pick it up in you. They'll pick up your enthusiasm. They'll pick up the fact that they can see something did happen to this person. They are seeing something different. They look at the way you are in life, and they say, wow, that's good. I'd like to be able to be like that. They see the benefits of the principles in you. That you are qualified. Your grounding is good enough to teach that person. Now, you might say, well, I don't know a fraction of what there is to know about the principles, or I don't know nearly as much as Max Gleason knows about the principles, or nearly as much as Linda Pransky. It doesn't matter. if that person picks up that you've got something that would be helpful to them, then you're qualified to teach them. You're qualified to share the principles with them, and whatever you share will be helpful to them, and they'll be looking for that help. So as you stay true to your grounding, you will attract people, and those people are your clients and students. That could be a business, it could be an individual, it could be a family member, but there's an attraction that naturally happens. People that can benefit from listening to you will be drawn to you, and they will be your audience, they will be your clients. And then when your level of consciousness goes up and you see the principles at a deeper level, there'll be other people who now recognize that you've got something, and then they will want to become your students. So that if people want to listen to you, then you're qualified to teach them, is what I'm saying. It's a self-selecting process. I guess that's the way it would technically be described. It's a self-selecting process.
It was typed in. It's from Verena, and I think it sort of ties into what we were just talking about, but Verena wrote, when is somebody ready to work as a practitioner with the principles?
Well, I'll answer that, Verena, in a little more extensively, since there's two people that are asking it. The first thing is what I said, is if people are interested in what you understand, that's one qualification. Okay? That's why you can't force it on people. They either see that you've got something or they don't. And if they see that you've got something, you can check that box. I'm qualified in that one of two things. The other qualification you need, which I mentioned earlier, is you need to be grounded enough that they become more like you rather than you becoming more like them. So you have to be grounded enough that you can keep your bearings in the face of other people losing theirs or being troubled. If you can keep your bearings, that's the other qualification. Like that's the qualification we have at Pransky and Associates. If every one of our people that work with us have to be able to keep their own well-being in the face of other people who have lost their own well-being temporarily and maybe are acting it out in various ways. So that is an absolute ironclad requirement. You have to be able to keep your bearings. Now, that doesn't mean you don't lose them sometimes. I lose them sometimes. I get caught up with clients' problem like that, believing in it. My spirits go down, and all kinds of terrible things happen to George Pransky. So it's going to happen, but on balance, you've got to be able to keep your own well-being in the face of difficulty. Because if you don't, your job would be too hard. You'd be like a regular therapist going home at night with your problems, commiserating and worrying about people. So you have to be able to keep your bearings. If you can do those two things, if you can, if people are attracted and interested in what you understand, and if you can keep your bearings and trying to share that with them, then in George Pransky's mind, you are a qualified three principles teacher. And your audience will be the people that are that see what you have to offer. Now, that's not to say that you don't want to keep learning, because the deeper your grounding is, the more you understand the principles, the more you learn about the nature of the principles, the more people are going to see that you have something to offer. So the more attraction there will be to what you have to offer, and also the more you'll see the need for the principles in the world, and that's what your opportunities are. So you'll say, "Wow, I could show them how the principles would help this. I could show them how the principles would help that." That's what creates opportunities. X number of those people will hire you or ask you to teach them. And some of them, it won't happen, but the more you see the principles in the world, the greater the number of prospects there are in the world. You'll see greater opportunity, more and more people who are prospects. And every time your level of understanding goes up, you'll see more opportunities and more prospects. Now, I know people say, "Well, how do you look?" Oh, well, you can go to listen to Sid Banks CDs and DVDs. You can read his books. You can listen to. There's a lot of great people who teach the principles out there. You can go to their webinars or go see the programs with them. Pransky and Associates, we have an internet course that we're very excited about that we do, and we have other blogs and presentations and stuff like that. So if you just keep listening and keep open and looking, your grounding will get deeper. And when it does, you'll be able to keep your bearings more easily in the face of other people's states of mind, and you'll attract more people who will see that you have something to offer them. And you'll also see more opportunities to step in and have conversations with people. You just have conversations, and out of those conversations, some people click in and some people don't. The conversations help to promote your business. Well, Max and Vanessa, I think we're just about out of time here. I wanted to thank everybody for listening in, and thank the people who asked the questions. I really enjoyed doing this. I look forward to doing another one at some point. So I hope that helps you in your pursuit to build your practice.
Great. Thank you very much, George. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And yeah, hopefully we'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks, Max.
All right. Bye, George.